Class is now in session. I'm Professor Hockey, and this is the Sharks Weekly Recap, this being of Week 5. The Sharks started off this week with their final game of their 4-game homestand against the Minnesota Wild. They came into this game with a 1-1-1 record on said homestand, and they were hoping to end it on a good note as they were coming off of a 4-3 victory against the Philadelphia Flyers in overtime, and they were facing off against a very good Minnesota Wild team. The Sharks started off this game extremely well, taking a 3-1 lead into the third period, but the Minnesota Wild, as I said, very good team, would not be deterred so easily, and they managed to score 2 unanswered goals early in the third period to bring the game once again tied. However, the Sharks were not going to be making the same mistakes they made in the Hurricanes game and Ducks game earlier on this season, and instead of having this game go to overtime and be more of a coin flip, the San Jose Sharks managed to get a go-ahead goal about halfway through this third period, and that was a lead they would not relinquish for the rest of the game, earning the Sharks a very important 2 points against a very good Western Conference team, and ending the homestand on a good note. The Sharks then had to take a quick 2-game road trip through Midwestern USA, and their first game brought them to Dallas, Texas for a game against the Dallas Stars. This time it was the Sharks who found themselves trailing by 2 goals. However, like the Minnesota Wild in the game previous, the Sharks managed to score 2 unanswered and bring the game at a tie 3-3, with Pavelski and Evander Kane getting the 2 unanswered goals. However, as is a lesson that the Minnesota Wild learned in the previous game, if you're playing a game where you trail a lot, you might get punished, and that's exactly what the Stars did. They managed to get a late go-ahead goal in the third period, and then had Anton Khudobin, a constant rival for the Sharks as he continuously plays very good games against them. He managed to hold the door against the Sharks, and they ended up dropping a close game 4-3. The Sharks then had to immediately fly over to St. Louis to face off against the St. Louis Blues just in the following day, and this performance by the Sharks was most likely their worst of the season as they dropped 4-0 to the St. Louis Blues and did not look particularly strong at all, did not give goaltender Chad Johnson much of a exciting night in terms of high danger scoring chances. The Sharks did respond well in the following game as they returned home and started their first game of their 6-game homestand, a massive 6-game homestand, and this was against a team that is one of the few on top of them in the division, and so it was a very key game, especially after the stinker that they had a couple nights ago in St. Louis. The Sharks came out very strong and managed to take a win against the Calgary Flames 3-1, this being the first time in about 3 weeks in which the Sharks did not give up at least 3 goals in the game. Coming up with the offense this week, leading the way was Captain Joe Pavelski with 2 goals and 2 assists for 4 points, his first 2 assists of the season, and his point total jumped to 10 points. And he was especially important in the game against the Flames as 3 of his 4 points came in that one, as you were hoping for a good reaction from the captain after the terrible game against the Blues, and that's exactly what Joe Pavelski did for the Sharks. Brent Burns, the other player with 4 points this week, 0 goals and 4 assists, getting his point total up to 20, the second highest defensive scorer in the entire league at the moment. Brent Burns putting up 2 assists in both of the first 2 games, so a good week for him. Then Evander Kane, 2 goals, 1 assist for 3 points, 13 points on the season now, as well as Marcus Sorensen with a goal and 2 assists for 6 points on the season, all 3 of these points actually coming in the game against the Minnesota Wild the first of the week. Then Thornton, Goodrow, Suomela, Meyer, and Donskoy, each of them putting up 2 points, and they are the only other players who had more than a single point this week, and interestingly enough, all five of those players reached their 2-point mark with 1 goal and 1 assist, so just a bit of an interesting statistic. News of the week, Burns' play begins to get back up to the level that we like to see. Last season was a bit of an off year, even though he still put up a good amount of points. It was just a bit off defensively, and you were hoping for a bit more from Brent Burns, especially coming off a season where he won the Norris in the 16-17 year. Brent Burns looking a lot more like that defenseman this year, as the 20 points, as I said, leads the team, as well as second in the league in defensive scoring, and also his defensive play is certainly picking up, especially the final game of the week against the Calgary Flames. He was very good defensively. Next, Martin Jones's play also rounding into form. He has been struggling a bit this year, at least his stats say that. And to start off the week, he had an okay game against the Minnesota Wild. Then against the Dallas Stars, he was very good, but the Sharks just gave up too many high danger chances for Jones to be able to carry the Sharks to that win. But the final game of the week against the Calgary Flames, Martin Jones was absolutely fantastic, making multiple key saves for the Sharks, limiting the Flames to only a single goal and giving the Sharks a very key 2 points. We know Jones is one of the better goaltenders in the NHL, and while his stats right now show that he's in the bottom half or even the bottom third of the league, hopefully those stats will rebound, and if the game against the Calgary Flames is a sign of anything, it shows that that is going to happen. The final thing this week that I'd like to talk about is sort of like the final thing I talked about in the previous week, which was the Hertl injury, but this time it's the Couture injury. Tomas Hertl missed 3 games this week, but managed to return for the game against the Sharks and the Flames, but the Sharks could not remain without injury for too long, as Logan Couture had to leave about halfway through the third period against the Calgary Flames with an unspecified injury. Now we do know, or at least we believe, that it is not a head injury, so it's not as dangerous as what happened to Tomas Hertl, but we're still not sure what is going on with Logan Couture. Maybe he'll play the next game, or maybe he has an injury that requires surgery that could keep him out for an extended period of time. The only thing the Sharks can hope for at the moment is that it isn't anything serious, and Logan Couture will be back for the game on Tuesday against the Nashville Predators to start off that week. Class dismissed.